Well, it's a good time to be someone planning on adopting a Project Scorpio when it comes out because we've got some good news coming from Microsoft. What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and as I mentioned in the intro, Microsoft have outlined one or two little bits of extra info ahead of the console's full, proper, in-depth reveal a few days from now at E3 2017. So what have Microsoft said and why is it relevant? Anyway, the first thing to note is that in a tweet coming out from the corporate vice president of the Microsoft and Xbox brand, Mike Ybarra, he tweeted something good here. We'll keep tuning Scorpio to empower creators to share the best versions of their game. We unlocked an extra gigabyte of GDDR5 for them to work with. Now 9 gigabytes of GDDR5. So that's pretty good. He also went on to say real quick that games that don't use the full 9 gigabytes, the rest of the RAM will be used as a cache, meaning things load way faster, etc, etc. So basically that's sounding pretty good. For those of you who don't know, Microsoft have they've basically gone full ham into the Project Scorpio. The original Xbox One had 8 gigabytes of DDR3 memory. Not old school GDDR3, not GDDR4, not GDDR5, and certainly not GDDR5X, but standard DDR3 memory, something which is very old in the aspects of using it for graphics and using it for video rendering. DDR3 is generally still used for standard PC RAM, of course, unless you've got a decently modern PC, in which case you're using DDR4. Wow, all these letters and acronyms, it's such a bit of a head case. So as I mentioned, the original Xbox had 8 gigabytes of DDR3 versus the Project Scorpio, which is going to have 12 gigabytes, an extra 50% of GDDR5, which is considerably faster as a whole. Even if you were to compare 8 gig of DDR3 versus 8 gig of GDDR5, there would be a huge power difference, let alone having all this extra RAM inside of it, the extra 50%. So in the original Xbox, you had 8 gigabytes. Now, 5 gigabytes of those were available to video memory. For example, you could create games that could use up to 5 gigabytes of memory. The reason for that was the Xbox One originally used, well, actually, I believe it still does. I'm not 100% sure because of the whole Windows 10 upgrade, but the way it's working is that the original Xbox One has 3 different operating systems running all at the same time. 1 gigabyte of memory dedicated to each operating system, and then the rest of the 5 dedicated to the games. So essentially you only had 5 gig to work with. Now, when the PS4 was announced, the PS4 also had 8 gigabytes of memory, but it used 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory, which, as I mentioned, is considerably better for video rendering and graphics creation. Essentially, it was much better RAM suited to the task, and because of that was generally what gave the PlayStation 4 the graphical advantage in 99% of the cases. So now that Microsoft have announced the Xbox One Project Scorpio, not only is it using the improved version of the RAM, sure, it's not a GDDR5X RAM, but I mean, we have to be realistic in the world of consoles here. So not only is it using the better version of RAM that it could use, it's also using 12 gigabytes of which. Now, having said that, from this tweet we found out last night that the original plan for the Project Scorpio was to have 8 gigabytes dedicated straight to the graphics and straight to the video. So basically, developers could create games working within the confines, knowing that they would have 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 to work with. And then the other 4 gigabytes would be running, say, it kind of doesn't make sense really when you think about it, because if you have these 3 operating systems running the same way that they are now, assuming the same way that they're running now, because we don't know based on whatever's going to happen in the future dashboard updates or what we might find out at E3 in a few days. So the big thing is that now they would have 4 gig left to the operating systems and 8 gig to the games. That is now different and not the case. So we have 9 gig dedicated to just the games and the video rendering, and we have 3 gigabytes dedicated to the operating systems and the behind the scene things. So that should work and function as it does already now, versus the 9 gigabytes, which are going to push it even closer and even better to what they market the Scorpio as, the most powerful console on the market, which will be true because when the Scorpio releases, it will be the most powerful console on the market. They have promised many things like native 4K gaming, 60 FPS gaming. They've even sometimes mentioned 4K 60 FPS. There's a whole myriad of things that could get into at the moment right now that I won't, but I will just say one thing real quick. Don't expect 4K 60 FPS, 4K native 60 FPS with amazing graphics the entire time. It's a whole other topic for a whole other video that I'm not going to discuss right now. But the big thing to take away from this is Microsoft are listening to developers. Developers are telling them, hey, we'd love if we could, get a little bit more RAM just because we don't want to use this feature, or there's this extra other feature we really want to use, or we're just shy of hitting this resolution, or we're just shy of hitting this frame rate. If we had a little bit more memory to run with, we could do that. And apparently Microsoft are listening, and what we have now is 9 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory available to our developers, or well, not our developers, to the developers to actually run and render their games. By comparison, I know we already used the original Xbox One as a comparison, but by comparison from the other side of it, the PlayStation 4 has access to 4.5 gigabytes of GDDR5 to make video graphics and all from, and the PlayStation Pro has 5 gigabytes of GDDR5 available to use for all your extra rendering power and all as well. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. My hype for Scorpio is building back up. Recently, if you remember some of the videos on my channel, it was kind of winding down and Scorpio was less and less appealing to me. Now that we're finding out a bit more about it and we're getting closer to the actual specs, well, not so much specs, but what the specs can do and how they're going to be utilized, as well as now this addition that Microsoft are listening to developers, it's all pretty promising, and I'm looking forward to hearing about it. This reminds me of back in the day, I say back in the day, but I'm talking back in the early days of the Xbox One, when Microsoft overclocked their CPU a little bit more to allow developers to get a little bit more out of it, to get, I believe it was 10%. And then there was another time where they actually said, hey, developers, if you don't want to use Kinect enabled features, we had this one CPU core that was dedicated to Kinect features. We'll give you access to that if you don't want to use Kinect features. So it really goes to show that Microsoft are going out of their way to help out developers and really push the Xbox One Scorpio to be all that it can be. It's proven and shaping up as it is at the moment that it's going to be a beast as far as console goes. I'm still not sure if I'm going to get one because my Xbox usage and all is still kind of shaky, but for anyone out there who is looking to invest in a Project Scorpio, so far it's all looking good on your front. So what's your opinion on Project Scorpio? What's your opinion on now being bumped up even more from 8GB to 9GB? Is that going to be a benefit to you? Do you think we'll see the difference? How do you think developers are going to use it? Are you curious? Are you hyped? Are you going to be investing in a Project Scorpio? Or what does it all hinge on? Will you invest in one if a certain requirement is fulfilled, or what's the deal? Let me know all of that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.